Hello, and welcome to Sonata She Wrote. Today I am continuing my analysis of Schubert's song cycle Winterreise and the fourth song, Erstarrung. Before we begin our discussion, in this song there's a language barrier that I'm going to try to clarify, and it has to do with the title. You see it translated variously as numbness or sometimes stiffness. Ian Bostridge, a British tenor known for his interpretations of Schubert, writes in his book on Winterreise that it might better translate as frozen stiff. You can see in the quote on the screen, Bostridge gives various defenses of his translation, and to me, it makes sense. What makes numbness or stiffness alone such an inadequate translation is that they de-emphasize how painful the feeling of cold attacking your limbs can be. There may be a sense of numbness as in diminished sensation to touch on your actual skin, but the pain of cold fingers comes from deep inside the bones. The music, accompanied by triplet figures throughout, has the painful, grasping, searching feeling of trying to find something or complete an intricate task when your fingers are frozen stiff.
Ich such im Schnee vergebens nach ihrer dritte Spur, wo sie an einem Arm durchstrich die grüne Flur. Ich such im Schnee vergebens nach ihrer dritte Spur, wo sie an einem Arm durchstrich die grüne Flur.
Schubert's traveler is searching through the snow, attempting to find the footsteps or memories of his time with his beloved underneath it, when they strolled arm in arm through green fields. Whether we are meant to interpret this literally, as a manic-driven, frantic search through snow for evidence, or metaphorically, is unclear. Youens writes that the extravagance of his actions and intent briefly masks their futility, although he is unable to sustain such melodramatic gestures for long. Because of the wanderer's characteristic self-awareness, the poem has a fine psychological complexity at its core. The wanderer knows, even as he searches desperately through the snow, that his actions are pointless, but he is impelled to look nonetheless. Musically, Schubert illustrates the futility of this search with 3 evaded PACs in the tonic appearing at the end of each couplet, and the final cadence point for the verse, a brief foray in the mediant major, which also ends in an evaded PAC here. In this song, each verse of Müller's poem is repeated twice, with occasional phrases within the verse repeated more often.
Ich will den Boden küssen, durchdringen Eis und Schnee mit meinen heißen Tränen, bis ich die Erde sehe. Ich will den Boden küssen, durchdringen Eis und Schnee mit meinen heißen Tränen, bis ich die Erde sehe. Wo find ich eine Blüte, wo find ich grünes Gras? Die Blumen sind erstorben, die Rasen sind so blass. Die Blumen sind erstorben, die Rasen sind so blass. Wo find ich eine Blüte, wo find ich grünes Gras?
Referencing the previous song, Gefrorene Tränen, the wanderer bends over and spills his fiery tears on the snow, seeking to melt it away. In Schubert's music, the second verse, after its second repetition, ends with an actual PAC, marking the end of the A section of this song. The wanderer reels away from the reality of snow and ice and into a fantasy world of A-flat major. He searches for green grass and flowers, but is unable to sustain the charade. The bassline melody, omnipresent in the A section, has disappeared in the B section. He is no longer looking down, searching frantically for evidence of his past love, but is aware that it's all been destroyed by winter. After cadencing in A flat, the verse repeats in the tonic C minor. Although, as Youens writes, Schubert's wanderer may be able to recognize what is happening to him, his acceptance of it, or failure to accept it, is symbolized by the music itself. Returning to the fierce search for a keepsake or memory in the return of the A section, demonstrated by the bassline melody, rather than searching frantically through the snow, we might now hear it as searching for a way to accept the loss of this time and looking to move onward.
Sollten kein Angedenken ich nehmen mit von hier, wenn meine Schmerzen schweigen, wer sagt mir dann von ihr? Sollten kein Angedenken ich nehmen mit von hier, wenn meine Schmerzen schweigen, wer sagt mir dann von ihr? Mein Herz ist wie erstarrung, kein starr ihr Bild darin schmiss das Herz mir wieder fließt auch ihr Bild dahin. Mein Herz ist wie erstarrung, kein starr ihr Bild darin schmiss das Herz mir wieder fließt auch ihr Bild dahin, ihr Bild dahin.
The reprised A section, although of course using new verses, is an almost note-for-note recap of the initial section of the song, flirting with the major intermediate and even the minor dominant keys. The music eventually comes to its strongest cadence here at the end, when the wanderer notes that his beloved's image within his heart would disappear if his heart were to melt. It might surprise you, but my take on this is that it's very tragic. The wanderer is recognizing that if he were to move on, something that would obviously be good for him, he would lose whatever tenuous connections remain to his beloved. That perhaps by frantically searching for evidence or a keepsake of her love, he is somehow keeping her alive in his heart. As much as this connection may be hurting him, he can't, or perhaps won't, let it go. In the last stanza of this song, Schubert actually changes the text of Müller's poem. As Hallmark writes in the Cambridge companion to this cycle, the original metaphor links the wanderer's frozen heart, erfroren, with the image of his beloved, which is frozen within. Schubert uses the word erstorben to describe the heart, deceased or dead. I can't find any insight as to why Schubert might have fiddled with the link between a frozen heart and the image thawing within the heart, but my only guess would be that death is an overarching theme in Winterreise, and Schubert wanted to prioritize that theme. The next song, Der Lindenbaum, is probably one of the most famous within this cycle, and it spins out of the accompanimental figures of Erstarrung. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you can support the channel, consider joining my Patreon at patreon.com/sonatashewrote, and as always, thank you for joining me.